podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Bjork, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Bjork and A.W. Schultz.
Well, hello, this is Factory of the Future, and I'm here with Alexandria Bjork and myself, A.W. Schultz. Another episode, another podcast, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a little research that I've been working on. And it's for another project, but I thought I'd bring it to the table as I've found some very interesting numbers that support a lot of what's done in maintenance reliability, and particularly in the organizational leadership realm on it. So I've got about 5 takes that I want to discuss today, and Alexander is going to help me with this and maybe define out what some of these numbers actually mean. They are referenced through about 10 sources, and they're reputable. And if anyone's interested in finding out more about it, please reach out to us, and I'd be happy to share it with you. So the first topic we're talking about is strategic asset management leadership. And the idea is when a organization has a vision and a goal, statistics have shown they are 78% more effective in high-performance maintenance organizations. Another thing is that organizations with strategic asset management plans show about 23% higher equipment reliability. Now, from experience, I can tell you that is probably right on. And I would argue it might even be higher than that. But as asset care works, if you take care of it, it runs better, it's more predictable. Another area to look at is resource allocation and budgeting. So in this study, companies with leadership-supported prevention maintenance programs spend 50% less on emergency repairs, and that goes down to the bottom line about maintenance. That reactive maintenance is much more expensive than planned maintenance, and overall, effective maintenance leadership reduces overall maintenance cost around 12 to 18% annually. And depending on what that organization does, those numbers could be quite a bit larger. The next topic is building high-performance maintenance teams. And this is talking about that human-centric approach. So creating the autonomy, creating a environment that people want to come to work in. Talent development and training. Organizations that invest in leadership-driven technical training see about a 34% reduction in mean time to repair. And that's a pretty common metric in maintenance, especially in the operations sector on it. But it goes to show that, you know, if you take the investment into the people, create some autonomy, some of the effects can be very positive.
Yeah.
It also shows that there's an 82% of successful maintenance departments have structured mentorship programs. Now, for me, I can't say I've been around many where they've called out, have mentorship programs, but I like the idea, and I'd be curious to see if anybody else has got a program like that out there. Also shows that 82% of successful maintenance departments have structured, I already did that. The next area is communication and collaboration. Now, with any project, any operations, it's all about the communication part of it. This study shows that teams with effective leadership communication channels report about 45% fewer safety incidents, less incidents with communication. Also, cross-functional teams lead by structured managers show about 28% higher productivity rate. So
yeah, I have a couple of comments, and I don't want to forget them as you continue on. So, you know, the first thing when you talk about cross-functional teams that I think about is, you know, kind of the opposite of that is
this very siloed structure and culture within an organization where nobody really knows what the other teams are working on. And what I find to be the biggest loss of opportunity when they're not kind of aware of other goals is that where it could be, where one person, even though it's not their core function to support the objective of another or another department, you could create a tailwind for the organization and the goals of the organization by simply just being aware, right? Yeah. If everyone is aware that we are trying to reduce maintenance costs by 10%, or if everyone is aware that our objective is to have some type of device installed on all these assets, whether it be a vibration monitor or whatever it might be, by having the people that seem cross-functional or not directly correlated engaged, you're exponentially improving your chance of success with that. So I think that comes down to cost, that the communication piece, the collaboration piece. You think about those two things just by doing that one simple act of informing the organization of what our top 5 priorities are. You have everyone marching in the same direction. Sorry, I didn't want to steal your headwind, but I just couldn't stop from commenting on that.
No, I'm glad you did. And one of the questions is like, well, you say communication. What does that look like? What does it mean?
Yeah.
And there's different types. And what comes to me is when I do an assessment on a maintenance department, one thing that we always ask, do you have a board that's communicating out the information, the metrics that are out there? And do you have meetings that exist where you are going over those metrics and having that dialogue, that toolbox meeting is what they call it, where the supervisors, the managers are having that connection point. And that's a way of pulling communications out of her. Certainly if you're good managers, you probably already know that, and you're probably already doing it, and you may not realize it. But when you're dealing with some organizations or individuals that are new into leadership, this could be a struggle for them.
I have to say on that one of the biggest pieces of feedback. So early in my career, I was overseeing a team of roughly 40, 50 people in different kind of more blue collar positions, truck drivers, mechanics, dispatchers, those types of things. So not exactly your white collar worker. So the communication about the objectives was delivered in a different means than when I was kind of running a team of 6 more white collar workers, right? So I asked the team of 6, because I was pretty young at the time, and they were senior to me by 15, 10, 20 years in some cases. So they had just naturally more experience than I did in the world. And so I'd ask them, I said, what can I do to be a better manager? Like, what can I do to help you succeed in your role? Which frankly, that already just is a win, because most managers don't even have the wherewithal to have that conversation and that question, or don't care. But through asking that, I got the best advice ever. And they all said, we just feel disconnected from the organization's goals. We don't know what's going on. So we have these weekly meetings. If you could please present and give us an update, we would love that. So then what I did is, on our structured weekly team meetings, I presented to them on like the quick corporate updates, like from my leadership up. And then I produced like kind of like a dashboard and a scorecard for each one of them, where I just very point blankly illustrated the facts. They were tied to the goals that we had around, achieving certain metrics. And I'll tell you what, by the end of that, despite the program in and of itself being a failure, that team blew shit out of the water. Like, we were doing things that people didn't think was possible before this team came on. And I have utmost respect and admiration for the team that did that, and it's all on them. But I do believe it was fostered through the collaboration and the open-mindedness to listen and to give them what they need, and to communicate what the objectives are and communicate what the focus is. So I think if there's a manager out there who's maybe new to managing white collar workers, or maybe is, veteran to it, ask your team what they need from you. Ask your team, I've always voice my opinion in meetings that I'm in, saying, why are you guys not sharing what our objectives are as an organization? Because I'm just over here running on my hamster wheel. I don't know what I should be doing. And now knowing what another of my coworkers, colleagues' goal is, he's supposed to get 100 of these things installed. In every meeting I'm having, I'm pushing that agenda and reminding people that this needs to be top of mind. Here's how to use the systems that I oversee to achieve that goal over there. So,
yeah. So the loaded part about why I'm talking about this right now is, a friend of mine, we're in the midst of building a training or out there, and we were asking the question, like, what should be the first thing we talk about? And this is in regards to maintenance reliability. And he just, without a doubt, he goes, organizational leadership. And then so we're like, okay, well, I got some content and stuff I can pull together, and we'll bring it to the presentation. So that's kind of what's kind of driving a lot about what's driving some of these topics that we're going into today. So
that's cool.
The next one is, we think about risk management and compliance. Safety leadership. Strong safety leadership collides with a 67% fewer workplace accidents. So I think about that manager leads by examples. He's wearing the personal protective equipment on, recognize when somebody else doesn't have that on, immediate coaching. That doesn't surprise me at all. That it would be more safe.
Yeah.
So also, it's your organizations with integrated safety and maintenance programs see 40% lower injury rates.
So can I just draw an overarching kind of theme I'm picking up on? It seems to me that in some realms, people see safety and kind of these structured metrics and all these things as an expense, right? Like, oh, geez, that's going to cost us. Oh, geez, here we go. Another 30% of manpower going towards this one activity or whatever. But really, it seems to me that the overarching theme is, by being safe, being proactive, and by being, kind of collaborative and spending the time on the team things and like the educational and the communication pieces, that companies' bottom line improves much more drastically than if they're cutting corners. They're not engaging with their employees. They're not having these, different points of communication. They're not collaborating or explaining what the organization's goals are, and not setting these targets. And even maybe on the front end, they're spending more money up front to do the maintenance that needs to be done. Like in our organization, we spent several millions of dollars in the first couple of years that we were doing maintenance, and it was pissing people off. But now we've normalized everything. We've got it down to a much more stable place, and our equipment is down significantly less. So, kind of front loading that experience and investing early, it does create a tailwind of success and savings later. What does Frankie have to say about that?
No. He's not happy about it.
He's like, I think you should maintain this chair a little better.
Sorry, I was losing focus.
Okay.
I do agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's one of the driving forces. But the reason is, a lot of time, is that everyone's in a reactive mode.
Yeah.
And when you're in that reactive mode, the last thing you do is focus on all this stuff that needs to be done in the future.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of times are. I mean, it's
reactivity costs.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're just trying to get through the day. And they need, at some point, someone in organizational leadership needs to, tap on the brakes and say, slow down, let's get it fixed, and let's make realistic timelines.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I said to someone who is leading part of the team that I kind of cross hairs with or whatever. And I was like, somebody needs to step back and step out of the weeds. My coworker's like, well, our teams are really in the weeds. I'm like, well, it's your job, respectfully, to frickin' pull them out of the weeds and figure out how to make their job less in the weeds and more smooth and more, less bumpy, less chaotic. There's chaos in anything manufacturing and transportation in our supply chain. But if you're not working every day and you don't have that lens that filter to say, how can I make this less chaotic? How can I make this less stressful? How can I make this less whatever? And if you're a manager and you're not putting that seed and having that conversation with your team, I think you're failing.
Yeah.
That's the job of a manager, is to make their teams successful and to make their teams, less make their job more enjoyable, more successful. That's what you should be doing as manager. If you're not focused on that, you're not managing. You're just logging in.
Yeah. And what you think about the factor of the future, and I was doing some other research on millennials. I think I'm in front of one, and they necessarily don't put up with that anymore. Where in the past, you're hoping to get a job, and you work at that job for your entire career. Today, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And good managers are realizing that. And that's kind of what goes into that Industrial 5.0 and then human-centric approach.
Yeah. So, okay. So what is your experience in some of these things? I'm sure you've done workshops before we close out of this episode here. What is some of the stuff that you've seen in the transformations in some of the organizations that you've helped throughout your career, whether it be while you were employed or while you were consulting or, kind of running these workshops? I'm sure that there's touch points or follow-ups where you can see kind of track the progress that those organizations make. So as you were reading these statistics out and kind of doing this research for this presentation and the workshop that you guys are putting on, can you think of any examples where you've in real life experienced something kind of on one of the statistical, what is a story that you can share before we close out, of related to something?
Well, when I worked in the corporation, in the corporate roles, I would see it. But you go in the consulting timeline, usually when they start making progress and figuring out what to do it, they usually don't want you anymore.
Yeah. We've got it from here.
Yeah, I got it. I got you. I don't need to be cutting you a check every week. But what the maintenance side, it's pretty evident. Especially, I worked at one project where they didn't even have a CMMS system, and this was one of the largest factories in the United States.
How did they do it? They ran on Excel?
No, they had some company that shipped them PMs once a month.
Oh, that was the one, the PM letters.
Yeah, and then they would disperse them. And they didn't have a planner. It was the supervisor's job, and they did their maintenance on third shift on a Sunday night, which is
nice.
The worst.
Nice.
So when I see that, and then we got them turned around, we got them CMS, we got them a planner. I'm in there trying to get their metrics going. Yeah, these they blew these numbers out of the wall or out of the water.
Wow. And what was the leadership's opinion? Were they resistant? Were they we think this works pretty good. We don't think we really need that.
Well, they were given tools that, in the past they were set up for run to failure. They didn't have the leadership didn't have the leadership that was willing to invest. Yeah.
That's, I think, more of a core issue at companies than people care to speak up about, because who wants to say, hey, I want to do preventative maintenance, but my boss isn't really standing behind it. That's uncomfortable. That's a risky thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. When it came down to somebody with a bigger stick came in and had that conversation and had that, come to Jesus moment with them.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that goes back to the very first topic that you brought up, is from the top down. If that's the culture that you're creating, you'll see the savings. You'll see the tailwind that creates. But if you're trying to fly into that as a mid or low level manager, you are trying to swim with two hands and a foot tied to a cinder block. You're not going to win that fight. They're gonna stop you in every direction you go and cripple you with whatever additional maintenance, that the get ahead maintenance, we could call it. So I think that's awesome that you had the opportunity to work with a company that, obviously had some leadership change and just immediately valued advanced maintenance strategies and current, I should say, advanced current strategies for maintenance and preventative maintenance. So that's awesome. Cool. Are we clocking out?
Faster than finished goods. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on our podcast. Stay tuned for other podcasts, and for everyone else, have a great day.
Yeah.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.